Good evening again. My name is Eliza Rodriguez. I'm the president of California Women Lawyers. Welcome to this wonderful reception, the Southern California Judicial Reception and Dempsey Klein Distinguished Jurist Award presentation. I want to give a huge thank you to CWL board member Jacqueline Frederick and her committee for putting together this fabulous event for a very, very deserving honoree. So thank you, Jacqueline, and your committee. California Women Lawyers is a statewide bar association. We were founded in 1974. We work to advance women in society. We work towards gender equity, we work towards diversity in the bench, and we delight in honoring notable women, such as our honoree tonight. We have an upcoming annual dinner where the Board of Governors is sworn in by the Chief Justice. And at this event, we honor two awardees this year. One will be given our annual Faye Stender Award, and one will be given our Judith Soley Award. We also recognize notable women for their achievements in the prior year. The dinner this year will be on October 10th in San Jose, and we also held a foundation silent auction. So I encourage all of you to attend our annual dinner and continue to celebrate with us. So we honor outstanding jurists, one from the north and one from the south. The Joan Dempsey Klein Award was established in 1994 in honor of one of our founders and the provisional president, Joan Dempsey Klein. Nominees for this award are evaluated for excellence as a jurist, long-standing vigorous service, and inspiration to women lawyers of California. Prior recipients include stellar judges both from the state and federal courts, such as the Honorable Eileen Moore, the 4th District Court of Appeal, the Honorable Irma Gonzalez, U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California, the Honorable Lee Smalley Edmond from Los Angeles Superior Court, and the Honorable Audrey Collins, Chief Justice of the Central District of California. The Honorable Teresa Estrada Mullaney, well deserved to be included in the company of these amazing women. And now I'm pleased to introduce the chair of this event and CWL board member Jacqueline Frederick.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is really a pleasure to be able to host this, not only in my beloved Central Coast, but also especially here in Nipomo, where I have live and where I've practiced law for 24 years. First of all, I would like to thank the committee for all of the work that they've done putting this together, and I'd like to mention them by name. I would like to thank Naomi Dewey of Beineck, Favre, Auchbot, and Spray in Santa Barbara, Jane Heath, Dugan, Smith, and Heath, Megan Fox. She was with Sullivan Associates, but I believe Megan has a new job with Hall, Hyatt, and Conley. Colette Hillier, Andre Morrison Buttery, Tana Coates of Coates & Coates, Danielle DeSmith of Baymay and Erickson in Santa Barbara, and a special thank you to Shannon Bio, my associate with the Frederick Law Firm, for all of your hard work in helping to organize this wonderful event this evening. Events like this cannot go on without the help and the support of our wonderful sponsors. I would like to give an enormous thank you to one of my dearest friends, Judy Dana Powers Chadwell, and her husband Ed Chadwell, for providing your beautiful home to us today to host this event. Thank you very much. Our sponsors for today are people and law firms that have supported this event, and we thank you very much. The Frederick Law Firm is a gold sponsor. Our silver sponsors, Andre Morrison Buttery, Dugan Smith and Heath, Hall Hyatt and Connolly, the Madison Law Firm, the Sinsheimer, Yunke, McIver and Stroh, LLP Law Firm. Our bronze sponsors, Coates & Coates, Louise Lamoth, and David Peterson, Professional Dispute Resolution. And I would like to thank the affiliates and our co-sponsors for this evening, the Women Lawyers Association of San Luis Obispo, the Santa Barbara Women Lawyers Association, the San Luis Obispo County Bar Association, the North Santa Barbara County Bar Association, and the Santa Barbara County Bar Association. And thank you all very, very much. Your support is greatly appreciated. At this time, I would like to thank some very, very special people who have come this evening. And I would like to thank Assemblyman Kacho Asajian for coming and joining us this evening. Justice Kenneth Andreen, thank you for coming. Kevin Bomarito of Senator Monning's office. The Honorable Justice Paul Coffey, thank you for coming. Judge Jack Crawford, Judge Jean Dandona, Judge Denise DeBelfay, Judge George Eskin, Teresa Estrada, the mamacita of our honoree today. Thank you for coming. It's delightful to have you here. Judge Rita Fetterman, Dr. Laura Gomez, the Vice Dean of UCLA School of Law, Judge Jim Herman, Mark Jacobson of the Association Administration of Office of the Courts, Rod Cathcart of the Administrative Office of the Courts, Judge Barry LaBarbera, Judge Michael LaCover, and the esteemed husband of our honoree, John Mullaney. Thank you and welcome everybody for coming. I'd like to just say a few words before we begin, some wonderful words from some really great speakers who've agreed to speak on behalf of Judge Estrada Mullaney today. I moved to this county in 1990 after having practiced law for 10 years in Los Angeles. And I was fortunate enough at one time early on in the early 1990s to be in Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney's courtroom, and that's where I first met her. We had a case that involved a very difficult, emotional case involving a father and son who were suing each other. And I won't go into the details, but it was it was one of those cases that you know is just a tragedy. And I think that Judge Estrada Mullaney and I just knew without even speaking to each other about it that this was a case that just deserved to be resolved. And because we were set for trial that day, and it was a very emotional day, but we managed to resolve that case. And it's since then that I have looked to Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney as a mentor for me. And that is part of what this organization, California Women Lawyers, looks for, and what we value in the women that have come before us. Because it seems so strange in the year 2013 to think that gender at one point in our profession was an issue, but after 32 years of practice, I've lived through it. And it was just so wonderful to have just such a mentor and a woman that I could look up to and hope someday to grow up to be just like her. I also found it very gratifying to know that Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney and I share a similar background. We are both the children of immigrant parents. We come from a Latino background, and with that, you share certain values and certain aspirations in life in terms of wanting to do good and doing the best that you can and reaching out and helping others to succeed. And she has certainly done that, not only for me, but for so many others. I want to acknowledge Mayor Jan Marks, who could not be here today, for suggesting to the Women Lawyers Association of San Luis Obispo County that they nominate Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney for this award. I've been on the board of California Women Lawyers for 8 years. The nominations came in for several nominees from the Southern California area. Typically, the award does go to someone from the greater, metropolitan areas. And I want you to know that the California Women Lawyers Board was amazed at all of the firsts that Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney has stood for and has paved the way for so many women. The first district attorney, female and Latina district attorney in Orange County, here in San Luis Obispo County, the first female and Latina judge appointed and elected, and so many other firsts in her career. They were amazed and said, why haven't we heard about this woman before? So they are delighted and thrilled to be able to have honored you this evening with this award, and I'm personally honored as well. Thank you.
Now for our speakers who will speak on behalf of Judge Estrada Mullaney. This is a wonderful part of the program. We get to hear personal stories and accomplishments. So I'm so looking forward to this. So let's get started. From the Administrative Office of the Court, Rod Cathcart, please.
Thank you. Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney has had a wonderful and varied career as a jurist, which we are celebrating today. But what you may not know is that teaching has also been a lifetime interest and passion. She initially wanted to become a teacher, I think when she was in college, but the job market wasn't promising. After she earned her undergraduate degree from Loyola Marymount University. So instead, she went to law school like her brother. But just as her training and experience as a lawyer prepared her to become a judge, so did her experience as a judge lead her back to teaching. My name is Rod Cathcart, and I'm an attorney at the Center for Judiciary, Education, and Research, otherwise known as CJUR. And I got to know Judge Estrada Mullaney in this capacity as a teacher. When I was hired at the AOC nearly 14 years ago, my first job was to work with a group of judges, many with strong personalities, to develop a training program, a mandatory program on judicial ethics under a newly created program established by the Judicial Council for defense coverage in proceedings before the Commission on Judicial Performance. And this program is now known as Qualifying Ethics. Judge Estrada Mullaney has served as Qualifying Ethics faculty ever since. And the qualities that have helped her in her judicial role, her thoroughness, her preparation, her common sense, her empathy, her direct approach, her love of people. These are the same qualities that make her extremely effective as judicial faculty. In the classroom, she is focused on her students, and she creates a safe learning environment in which judges are able to share their most difficult experiences and stressful dilemmas, and this is necessary for the mutual benefit of all the judges in the class. One reason for this is that Judge Estrada Mullaney is so forthcoming about her own experiences and serves as a model. In particular, I recall at a 2007 California Bench Bar Conference, she taught a class, The Future of Judicial Elections and the Ethical Issues Raised, sharing her experiences during the 1996 judicial election campaign. She taught this class with Roger Warren and Justice Rebecca Wiseman. It was a wonderful class. What I've learned from Terry, judge and teacher, is that quality of treatment is what matters when it comes to preserving the rule of law in a courtroom and also to promoting learning in the classroom. By quality of treatment, I mean that she embodies the 4 key elements of procedural fairness in her roles as judge and teacher. These elements are, first, respect, because she is polite and treats people with dignity, helping them understand what is going on before moving on to the next thing. Second, voice, because she is attentive and patient. She listens to other people's stories and doesn't merely tell her own. Third, neutrality, because she is consistent and even-handed. And I believe she understands what I heard Judge Brenda Harbin-Forte say was the hardest work of being a judge. It's not making decisions, it's keeping an open mind. Fourth, and finally, trust, because of her values, moral character, and sincerity in all that she does. So, thank you, Judge, for your many years of service as a jurist and teacher to the bench, your community, and your family.
From the Administrative Office of the Courts, Mark Jacobson.
Hello. Thank you very much. Well, I have some of the same comments, but I have a few other suitable adjectives to use. So, again, I'm Mark Jacobson. I am a judicial ethics attorney at the Administrative Office of the Courts, and that's how I know our honoree. I'm here to say a few words about Judge Terry Estrada Mullaney and also about my friend Terry. Before I do that, however, I would like to congratulate her on receiving this extremely well-deserved award and to say how thrilled I am to be here and to have been invited to say a few words. Congratulations, my friend, and thank you. So first, I want to talk about my professional relationship with Judge Terry Estrada Mullaney. I first met her in 2001 when I started working at the AOC, and she was one of the instructors of our judicial ethics course. I was immediately impressed by her teaching style, her intelligence, her grasp of the subject matter, her limitless energy, and her practical, no-nonsense approach. We got to know each other a little, and in 2002, the California Supreme Court put together an advisory committee on the Code of Judicial Ethics, which I was asked to be the staff attorney for. This is a committee that makes recommendations to the Supreme Court about changes to the Code of Judicial Ethics. They needed another trial court judge for the committee because it was a little top-heavy with appellate justices and judges and justices from LA and the Bay Area. So I suggested Judge Estrada Mullaney, who I thought would be perfect for the committee, and to my great delight, the Chief Justice appointed her to be on the committee, and she was a devoted member of that committee until she retired about a year and a half ago, to my great dismay. And let me just say, I've staffed a lot of committees since I've been at the AOC, and this one is far and away my favorite. The members are great. They get along well. They're smart and thoughtful. It's a small committee. It's very manageable. And I happen to think the subject matter is fascinating. What I loved about having Judge Estrada Mullaney on the committee was that not only was she extremely knowledgeable about judicial ethics, but she was the voice of reason. Which is not to suggest that the other members weren't reasonable. But just as I saw in her teaching style, she was very practical. She had served in pretty much every type of judicial assignment, and she came to represent the views of smaller courts, which was greatly needed, I think, on this committee. And also, she was the only member who had been through a contested election, and the committee has done a lot of work around rules about judicial elections. So that was really useful to have Judge Estrada Mullaney there. And she would show up at the meetings with a big bag of homegrown treats for everybody, like apples and avocados. Then the AOC kind of ran out of money. And we started having meetings by video conference. So we would have one location in LA and we would have one location in San Francisco. And even though I suspect it was probably a little bit closer to drive to LA, she and John would always, to my great pleasure, drive to San Francisco for the meetings. And we would have the big screen up with the people from LA, and we would taunt them with our avocados and apples. And but I suspect that at least during baseball season, that it was much more about an opportunity to see the Giants play than it was about coming to see me. Anyway, I'm deeply indebted, Judge Estrada Mullaney, for your service to the committee and to the California judiciary. Now I'd like to talk about my friend Terry. This is my favorite part. Now, where I work, we're not allowed to call judges by their first names, so I'm hoping that you judge types won't rat me out. So Terry and I had talked a bit about how we both like to travel. And I think it was late 2002. I'm not sure. You probably would know exactly when it was. Terry told me she was going to Cuba, and I said, "I want to go to Cuba." And she said, "Well, you should come. I'm going with the Orange County Hispanic Bar Association." And I looked at her and I said, "Well, but I'm not from Orange County and I'm not Hispanic." And she said, "I'm pretty sure they don't care." So anyway, my wife and I had just returned from a trip to Chicago. I went to a judicial ethics conference in Chicago, and we had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old who we couldn't bring with us. And it was not easy to convince my wife to leave the kids at home, but I did. And we went, and we came back, and I said, I'm pretty sure there's no way my wife, Jerry, is right there filming me. Thanks, Jerry. I said, I'm pretty sure there's no way I can persuade Jerry to go on this trip. So I went home and I asked Jerry, I said, do you want to go to Cuba? And she said, yeah. And I said, oh, great. And I said, that shows you how well I know my wife. So we went to Cuba with Terry and about 100 Orange County Latino and Latina lawyers and a handful of other judges, several of whom were not Latino or Latina, I might add. And it was the trip of a lifetime. The trip organizers had lots of outings planned. We visited a hospital in Havana. We met with a group of Supreme Court justices there. We just had some really fascinating outings. But we decided we wanted to venture a little further and see some other parts of Cuba. So Terry, my wife, and I, along with another lawyer on the trip, Beach Bob, remember Beach Bob? Conspired to create our own Cuban agenda. So we hired a driver, and we went on a couple of fabulous all-day excursions that included excellent food and dancing on a rooftop while drinking mojitos at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, if you recall. But one of my favorite memories of Terry was back in Havana. The streets were totally chaotic. They were teeming with these enormous 1950s American vehicles spewing out toxic fumes. And then they had these little tiny 3-wheeled open-aired taxis. And they were weaving in and out of traffic, and there's pedestrians crossing all over the place. And And we're with Terry, and this proper petite woman, Terry, I'm talking about, steps out off the Malecon. We're on the Malecon, and she steps right into the middle of traffic, and she makes this taxi stop for us. And we're like, whoa, that's so cool. And then she tells the driver where we're going, and he starts talking. Now, I speak a little bit of Spanish, but this man was talking so fast, I couldn't understand a word of it. So he's talking, and we all said to Terry, what's he saying? She says, I have no idea. He's talking way too fast. Mind you, she speaks fluent Spanish, right? But she persisted, and she made him slow down. And just like the driver we had that took us on our outings, she would translate for us. And after, she had to keep saying, slow down, slow down. Another favorite part of my trip was we befriended a Cuban family. We went to their house. We ended up taking them out for dinner one night. And I just remember thinking, here's this woman in her 50s with the enthusiasm of a 20-something. And the thing I love about Terry that became so evident on that trip is that she enjoys and thrives on new, unfamiliar situations, not so much as a challenge, but as a new way of experiencing life. So Terry, once again, congratulations on receiving this prestigious award. You are a true inspiration. Thank you for your professional contributions to the California judiciary, and thank you for being my friend.
And now from the UCLA School of Law, Dr. Laura Gomez.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to honor my friend and mentor, Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney. And I want to thank the California Women Lawyers Association for having us here and the host of this lovely location. I'm tempted to ad-lib and talk about my last trip to Cuba, which I haven't had a chance to tell you about. But I'm not going to do that until later. Although it was really nice to hear that story, and we'll have a lot to talk about because we haven't talked about that yet. But I'm going to talk about three things in my brief time here. One is to talk a little bit about judicial temperament and how Judge Terry embodies that. And then I'm going to talk about the judge's time at UCLA School of Law, where she graduated in 1977. And then I'm going to end with some personal comments, which, I think is always nice to hear in these kinds of settings. So I want to start out by talking about judicial temperament. And I was looking, as I was preparing for these remarks, I was looking at Judge Terry's, I call her Judge Terry often, Judge Terry's yearbook, the class of 1977 yearbook. And in that yearbook, dean at the time was Bill Warren, who is a wonderful man, if any of you know him, just a wonderful, wonderful man who is still doing well and actually just moved out. He's been retired for probably 2 decades, but he just moved out of his UCLA office where he'd been coming every day, even while he's been retired for the last 2 decades. Anyway, he was dean at the time, and he wrote in the yearbook the following: "You've graduated from a public law school, and the public is entitled to something from you in return." And I don't think we remind people about that as much today as we should, but the public has invested a lot in UCLA and other public law schools, and I just want to say here publicly that the public really got its money's worth from you, Judge Terry. I think the qualities that we most admire, and you've already heard from some of the speakers, that we most admire in a judge are found in abundance in Teresa Estrada Mullaney. She's an independent thinker. She's unflappable, even under the most pressured of situations. She's a great communicator, which means speaking, but more often than not, the most important quality, which has already come through, mentioned by other speakers, which is listening, which I don't think we have good ways of teaching that. Certainly we don't in law school, but just cultivating that in our early training of lawyers is so important. A tremendous and unyielding work ethic, and compassion and a sense of justice. And all of those are so important for judges and for lawyers generally, but for judges especially. So I'd like to think that some of these qualities were at least nurtured during her times at UCLA School of Law between 1974 and 1977. And I think it's as we think back to that era and the dynamics, it's helpful to have a little bit of a broader context. In 1970, according to census data, in the state of California, there were 25,000 lawyers. 5% of them were female attorneys. 4% were non-white. And of those 4%, there were 56 Hispanic women lawyers in 1970 in the entire state of California. So the 6 Latinas who graduated in UCLA's class of 1977 were really making a dent in those numbers. It's for those of us who went to law school. I graduated, and one of my law school classmates from the CWL board, Chris Goodman, is here. I graduated in '92. It's just a completely different world, and so it's important to kind of ground ourselves in what that time was like. And you weren't the typical law student. You were married. You were commuting from Huntington Beach. And we were laughing because I was telling her I was looking at the yearbook, and she said, "Yeah, I was wearing my graduation robe and mortarboard, as several students were, but not the majority. The majority actually, and the majority of the faculty. This is funny too. If you look at the faculty, you're like, all these hippies. I mean, these beards and this long hair, and it was a very different era than what we see now." And I guess I don't want the night to end without us just acknowledging how difficult it was to be in your shoes at that time, and what a trailblazer you were for so many of us who came after you, as many other women in this room are for those of us who are in later generations, and as I hope that we can be for the generations who are coming after us. In different ways. Let me use that as a transition then to just say a few words of a more personal nature and talk a little bit about how I met the judge. And this is, I think, really typical of her MO as well. It wasn't me who reached out to talk to you. It was you who reached out to talk to me. She wrote me and said, "I read about you in the UCLA Alumni Magazine, and I'm so proud that you're a professor at UCLA." And this was, 15 or 16 years ago. And it was amazing to get this kind of letter. And I followed up. And for someone like me, there aren't very many people in Judge Terry's generation who have really accomplished the kinds of things that she has. And so it was really a great opportunity for me to find a mentor, a professional mentor, and then a friend, a lifelong friend. But I want to pick up on two things that we did together. Well, I guess maybe I'll just mention one. I don't want to exceed my 7 minutes. That relates to some of the earlier comments, which is you invited me to be a co-organizer with you of a judicial training workshop, the kind that Rob was talking about earlier. And so we started putting together this workshop, and we wanted to talk to judges about racism and in its racism in a, not in just a superficial way, but in a deeper way. And so we put together some materials on institutional racism. And we had a wonderful discussion in San Francisco of judges, and I think the kinds of it was just really fun to be co-teaching in that moment, and we should do that again. We should co-teach in some other capacity, maybe in Cuba, with mojitos in abundance. And then on the more personal side, I mean, I think our relationship initially started in that professional context, but it quickly evolved into a friendship and a mentorship, which taught me a lot about work-life balance, motherhood, I remember having lunch. I was talking to my boyfriend Taro today about a lunch we had in Santa Barbara when my son was 5 or 6. And he was and is still pretty rebellious and mouthy. So I told him we're having lunch with this judge, and I guess the wheels in his mind started working, and he proceeds to tell her that I've been abusing him. And she was fabulous because she didn't dismiss him, and neither did she take it very seriously, but he felt like he was he was listened to, right? That was the listening. He felt he was listened to, and he still recounts that story. Oh yeah, the judge that I told, nothing came of that, but, it was a good effort. And many times I have relied on Judge Terry for advice about motherhood and life and career and all sorts of things. And I just so value our friendship and the opportunity to follow in your footsteps in some small ways, and just to be the beneficiary of the generation of women who came before me, who blazed so many trails in law school and in the legal profession. Thank you.
And now from the Santa Barbara Superior Court, the Honorable Denise de Bellafay.
Thank you. And I want to thank California Women Lawyers for all the good you've done for our world since you came into being. I've been a judge almost 20 years. It's hard to imagine that much time has passed. And there are 3 things that have really gotten me through all the difficult times. The first, of course, is my wonderful husband, Judge James Herman, who has guided me well in crisis mode and taught me how to cross-examine as a lawyer and just been there with me for many years. The second is a quote from Irish President Mary Robinson, who was the first woman president of Ireland. And John Mulaney can relate to the Irish spirit. He brings that to the Estrada Mulaney family. And the third, and perhaps most amazing, has been my friendship with this amazing woman. Now, I didn't think I was going to get this worked up about it, Terry, but you are extraordinary. And I have to tell you, I'm going to share the quote from President Robinson with you in a while. But I'll never forget the first time I ever saw Terry Estrada Mulaney. I was a young deputy district attorney just starting out 25 years ago. And I was at a CDAA conference, a California District Attorneys Conference. We have to train ourselves periodically to go into court and do battle. Terry was up on the stage teaching some esoteric point about how to prosecute sexual assault cases. And I thought to myself, my first impression was, I will never be as smart and together and amazing as that teacher, lawyer, woman extraordinaire. Now, the guy sitting next to me in the audience happened to be a lawyer in her office, and he introduced us, and our friendship was born because Terry is the kind of person, as Dr. Gomez described, as Mark Jacobson and Rod Cathcart described, she loves humanity, and she takes you in. I wasn't worthy of it, but I grew worthy of it. And once Terry becomes your friend, she never lets you go. She never lets you down. She's an extraordinary human being. So, back to President Robinson. This is what she said in 1991, the year before Terry was first appointed to the municipal court in San Luis Obispo, the first Latina and woman appointed to that court. President Robinson was visiting the National Association of Women Judges who were holding their annual convention in Chicago. And she said these words, "In a very few years, we lawyers and you judges have been privileged to witness the progress of women from being the recipients and objects of the law to interpreters of it and agents of change within it. In your courts and in all of our experience, we know there are people who perceive the law not as a source of protection, but as a terrible ordeal. It is part of the challenge we face and accept as women and law enforcers that we can persuade them to look again. I think our sense of society and our collective and individual experience enables us to understand the inarticulate and the defenseless. It enables us to divide the true authority of the law from its authoritarian aspects. Women judges have, in this generation, an invaluable contribution to make, not to feminize the law, but to humanize it. Now, when we think of Olympic athletes and the training that they go through to achieve Olympic gold, silver, or bronze, we can appreciate the years of struggle, the hard work, and once they've got that medal, they've got it made. But if you think about the woman who shattered the glass ceiling not once, but several times in her life, there's no medal waiting for you. It's just more hard work and more shattering of cultural stereotypes, expectations. And cultures are what they are, and we're born into them, we navigate in them, we learn how to behave according to the norm. So a woman judge in 1991 was not the norm in San Luis Obispo. And I know from many late night chats and many intimate conversations, both over a cup of tea, over the telephone, sharing our experiences, we knew how tough it was to change our culture, to be accepted, to have our voices heard. It is not that easy all the time. And Terry really came through for me time and again in the toughest times. I hope, and I hope that I did that for you occasionally, Terry, because I have such empathy for what you have gone through in your many years of service. When I was in a very particularly difficult moment of challenge in my own career as a judge, Terry simply sent me a Winnie the Pooh card. And I have it framed on my desk to this day. And it shows Winnie holding Piglet's hand. And they're walking towards a beautiful, vista. And the caption simply reads, "Be brave, my dear friend. You are stronger than you think." And Terry, you have touched my heart. And I will always be your Piglet. Thank you so much.
Nice. And now, from the San Luis Obispo Superior Court, the Honorable Barry Barbara. Barbara. Did I say it right? I'll let you say it. How's that?
Okay, so I'm the last speaker. Everybody said everything there is to say about Terry. No, not really. I'm here with Jeannie, my wife, and Jeannie's with me to celebrate Terry's award. Everybody has spoke about the reason she deserves it. Needless to say, we in San Luis Obispo believe she deserves it. She's the quintessential recipient of this award, and the names that were mentioned earlier of those people who have received it, she deserves to be in that company because she has done a lot of things for a lot of people, not just women. I mean, she has helped women, no question. She's helped me. She basically is a full-service helper. And, Judge DeBell, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce her name. Okay, so anyway, that she was obviously touched by what Terry did for her, and I am aware of people that feel the same way. I happen to have witnessed most of her career. Certainly, we started in Orange County. I don't think we really knew each other very well because Orange County is a pretty big office. But I was chief deputy in San Luis when she was hired. 81. And I remember her coming in to the first judges meeting. I remember it to this day. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed is an understatement. She was ready to go. She was loaded for bear. Her eyes were wide, and she wanted to know, who are these people that are working in San Luis? And I'm the first woman. I know that she didn't think that at the time, but she was there in that room. It is, I mean, I'm obviously have not experienced some of the things that the females here have experienced in professional life, but I know Terry had to be struck by that. She was the first woman. Everybody said it numerous times, but it's significant because I know what she went through. She had to endure stereotypes, whatever you call it. She had to endure that. And San Luis, sleepy town maybe, I don't know what you would call it, but I became the DA. She did put on the first murder case, a female. She came into me one day and she said, you know, I need to do this case. It's a rape case, multiple rape victims. I need to use DNA. DNA. What year was that? I don't remember what year that was. 89. It was still new. I said, DNA, you can't do that. I can do it. I can do it. I need to do this. This is the way we convict this guy. And she did. And she convicted him. And she did just an outstanding job in all the cases that she handled. When she applied for the appointment to the bench, I was the DA. To me, she was clearly the best candidate. I believe I told you I rated you the highest candidate. And she was appointed by Governor Wilson, a Republican, because she was so obviously the one that should be appointed. And she was, as was mentioned, the first female, second Latin, but the first Latina. 1859, some governor, who he was, but he served as a judge. Realistically, that doesn't count. But anyway, so she was the first of the first. But you know what's really significant, and you probably read it in in some of the materials, that stayed that way for 10 years. It wasn't until 2002 that Judge Harmon was appointed. And I'm here to tell you that I watched and I saw, when I went on the bench in 98, I saw what she went through. And we know what she went through. You're in a court that she was the only woman for 10 years. That's big. I mean, that really is huge. And all of you have talked about it. I recognize it. And that she did that, a monument to women lawyers, but since then, there have been numerous appointments to the bench, one of whom, I know Judge Fetterman's here. Judge Harmon got a migraine. She can't be here. And I think Judge Hurst was going to be here also. But, you know, to be a trailblazer, you talk about it, but to go home every night and experience it has to be, it's unbelievable. So that's what I can say about her as a judge in the municipal court. So she, in 1996 was the election. Judge Fetterman, Judge Fredman. Did I see Judge Fredman's wife here? You did. Natalie. There she is. Natalie's here. And the late Judge Fredman passed in open seat. Terry filed for election.
Actually, it was for Harry Wilford's seat.
I'm sorry, that was, okay.
Harry Wilford retired.
Thank you, Harry Wilford retired. I put this out of my mind because guess who she defeated? Yours truly. But you know, the amazing thing is that we became such great friends after that. It's when I went on the bench, actually I was appointed to her seat that she left to take the seat, Judge Wolpert's seat. Anyway, I want to acknowledge Natalie Fredman. It's good to see you. You're looking well. I didn't mean to pass over you, but thank you for coming, for Terry. Thank you. So I went on the bench. You know, people talk about how she supported women, and she supported me. I mean, I was a brand new, relatively new judge. And I'm at a judge's meeting. All of a sudden, Terry is nominating me to be APJ. I didn't even know what it meant at that time, but she was supportive of me and she helped me. That's when I started out by saying she has helped me. Not just women. She does champion women, but she helps people that she thinks deserve it, and that's something that is to be acknowledged, and I'm here to do that. The other thing about Terry is, and I can call her Terry. I'm Mark Jacobson Camp. I call her Terry. Terry. The other thing is that she is just such a family person. I mean, I remember, when her late dad was having troubles, and her mom, and she talked about it on a daily basis. We were next door neighbors in the chambers, and to talk about her understanding the human condition. It was in her own home. She was so taken by everything. She wanted to help. She wanted to do everything. And I would tell her, Terry, you can't drive down there every weekend. It's going to kill you. Well, she did. I mean, that's what Terry's about. And I'm looking at John sitting there, and I remember there was a case that I settled, big, long case that I settled, and Terry said, well, you got to come over for dinner. And so we come over. Jeannie and I were at dinner at Terry's house. She cooks this. If you haven't had Terry's Mexican food, the tamales, it's unbelievable. Anyway, so we have this dinner, and then she's so supportive of her husband. We're ready to leave. She tells me I have to go down and look at his trains. His train set is in what is that, a basement? I guess downstairs. So we go down there, and there's John, puts on his little hat, and he's the engineer. And Jeannie and I are standing there thinking, what am I doing here? I'm looking at these trains. But Terry, I had to go down and look at John's trains, so I did. Anyway, but as a Superior Court judge, she is the only judge. You talk about excellence as a jurist, and one of the criteria being that she's the only judge in our court that has done every assignment. She's done criminal, she's done civil, she's done family law, she's done juvenile law. No other judge has done that, including myself. Nobody's done it. She's done it. Did a magnificent job. As in the municipal court, she was never reversed. Excellent judge. In Superior Court, she tried cases. I can't even tell you the cases that she tried in Superior Court, a lot of criminal cases. But I remember one case particularly was the earthquake case. And this case was complex. She had lawyers from all over the country, and it was a long trial. She just, talk about a plum. She just did that trial like it was, okay, this is my job today. I'm going to do this trial, and I'm just going to do a magnificent job, and everything's going to be affirmed. And it was a big verdict, and it was, law that you had to learn. It's not something you would know, but she learned it, and that's what she does. And I just can't say enough about the kind of perseverance, work ethic. It's incredible, and that is what she's about. In our court, she's a mentor to the judges, to the female judges especially, but more than that, to the staff. She was always the person that the staff came to. I got a problem with so-and-so. Go to Judge Estrada Mullaney. I got a problem. That's what she did, because everybody knew she would listen. And she would, when somebody was talking earlier about her listening, she listens. That's what she does. And she tries to help people. Is my time up? No. It's only So she's always the customer relations person, dealing with the public, dealing with other agencies. When she went to juvenile court, she reinstituted what's required actually by the rules of court, to be out in the community, explain to the community what happens in juvenile court. She took that to the next level. Juvenile court, she took into consideration, talk about compassion and a feel for justice. The way she talked about and worried about minors, she did it in every case she handled, but in a situation in juvenile court, she was concerned. What do I do with this child? How do I handle this case? And she would, just agonize over it, because that's what she did. She is an outstanding jurist. She is long-standing service, inspiration to women, and as I said earlier, others. She takes the extra step for public service. She cares about the human condition. She cares about what happens to people that come to her court. What's going to happen to that person when I rule? What's going to happen? How's it going to affect that person's life? That's what she cares about. And that's why she deserves this award. She's a great friend to me. You know, Mickey Mantle once said, if I could just say one thing on my tombstone, it's that I'm a great teammate. Terry is a great teammate. She was my teammate, and I appreciated her, and I still appreciate her to this day. Before I finish, I have to present her with a proclamation from the Board of Supervisors, which says, Certificate of Recognition to Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney. My Spanish isn't as good as Professor Gomez. With congratulations on being selected to receive the Joan Dempsey 2013 Distinguished Jurist Award, signed by the Board of Supervisors. So Terry, thanks for being my friend. Congratulations.
Now for the presentation of the plaque in honor of Justice Joan Dempsey Klein. The California Women Lawyers Joan Dempsey Klein Distinguished Jurist Award, presented to Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney in recognition of her excellence as a jurist, her unwavering commitment to uphold the law, and her inspiration to women lawyers. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you take this one? Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated, those of you who have chairs anyway. I want to thank California Women Lawyers for this amazing and totally unexpected award. I was nominated a few years ago, and when I didn't get it then, I didn't give it another thought. When my husband and I returned from vacation in May, there was an email attachment letter telling me about the award. I thought it was a scam. I had to call Jacqueline Frederick to ask her, is this real? Is this really happening? And I was just in shock. I know that Jacqueline Frederick has already named the officers who are here from CWL, the sponsors, the organizing committee, so I won't repeat all of the names, but I appreciate that CWL's president is here, Elisa Rodriguez, the president-elect, Nita Mansourian, several members of the Board of Governors, and of course, a special thanks to the reception organizing committee and all of the wonderful sponsors, especially Jacqueline Frederick's law firm and the owners of this beautiful location, the Dana Powers House. Thank you very much. Some family and friends have traveled a great distance to be here tonight. My favorite cousin, Marilena, and her husband and lawyer are here from El Paso, Texas. We have Jerry, Rod, and Mark from San Francisco, Laura Gomez and her friend Taro from Los Angeles, and so many other people from Santa Barbara County and San Luis Obispo County North. I want to acknowledge all of the judges who are here from San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara, and say a special thanks to our speakers, the Honorable Denise de Belfay, and the Piglet, and the Honorable Barry LaBarbera, correct pronunciation of his name. I was pleasantly surprised that retired Justices Ken Andreen and Paul Coffey are here tonight. I didn't expect them to be able to attend. Justice Coffey began his judicial career on the San Luis Obispo Superior Court, and he was appointed just 1 week before I was, and like me, retired last year. So thank you both for being here tonight. There is a very special guest here, and Judge LaBarbera already mentioned her, but Natalie Fredman is a dear friend, and she is the wife of one of my heroes, the Honorable William Fredman, who was my male role model as a judge and died far too young. So thank you, Natalie, for being here tonight in his honor. My legal career was the result of the closing of one door and the opening of another. When I graduated from Loyola Marymount University in 1970, I wanted to join John as a teacher in the LA City school system. But first there was a teacher's strike, of which John was a proud member, not crossing the picket lines. And then there was a hiring freeze, so I decided not to seek my credential. Sibling rivalry was the reason that I changed a career path. At that time, my brother had started law school. We couldn't afford for me to go to school right away, so for 4 years, I worked as a waitress, and I'm proud to say that that experience as a waitress was one of the best real-world experiences to train me, actually, to be a trial attorney, working with people from all walks of life. So I worked for those 4 years, and then I was thrilled to no end to be lucky enough to be accepted at one of the nation's best law schools, UCLA. And I'm not saying that just because Dr. Gomez is here tonight. Choosing the law as my career was the second best decision of my life. The best was accepting John's proposal of marriage. I was 19 and he was 22 when we were married 47 years ago. He has been my rock, and he and our son John have supported all of my dreams throughout the years. In recognition of the mission statement of the California Women Lawyers, I want to tell you about 2 women who have inspired me in my life. And now I'm probably going to start crying. My mother, Teresa Ulloa Estrada, is one of the hardest working people I've ever known. With my dad working out of town for weeks at a time, she would get up before dawn to make a hot breakfast and pack lunches for me and my brother before she went to her job as a seamstress in the Los Angeles Garment District. My brother and I were the best cared for latchkey kids in the neighborhood. She only had a 3rd grade education, but she wanted so much more for her children. I have often said that my dad taught me to dream the impossible dream, but it was my mother who taught me that you have to work hard to achieve your dreams. The other woman of inspiration for me is retired Orange County Superior Court Judge Frances Munoz. During a law school internship, I worked at the Orange County Public Defender's Office, and that's where I had the opportunity to meet and work with her. 2 years later, Governor Jerry Brown, the first time around, appointed her to the bench. She became the first Latina judge in the history of California. This was 1978. And at her enrobing ceremony, I resolved that that would be my goal. I wanted to be a judge someday. She was my role model and inspiration. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight because she couldn't change her vacation plans. I was the first Latina deputy DA in Orange County. I will never forget my first day on the job. There were 6 new lawyers starting that day. 4 of them were men, and the 4 men and the other woman were escorted into a special waiting area. I was told to wait in the lobby. And when I asked why, the receptionist said to me, "Well, those are our new attorneys. The new secretaries have to wait in the lobby, and your supervisor will come and get you very soon." I did not set out to be the first woman judge in this county. It just happened that way. And I'd like to tell you many stories of what I call the woman judge stories, but I'll just tell you one. A small claims plaintiff, cabinet maker, was suing someone because he had not been paid for a special order set of kitchen cabinets. And it was very obvious to me that he thought I wouldn't understand his case. And so he said to me, "Judge, maybe I can explain it in terms that you will understand. Why don't we say that, think of it as if you had made a special cake for someone and they wouldn't pay you for it." Several years ago, I told a judge, I've been asked to be a speaker at a Women of Color conference. And he said to me, "Well, why would they ask you to speak at such an event?" And I said, "Well, maybe because I'm a Latina. My parents were Mexican immigrants." He looked at me and he scoffed as he said, "You're not a Latina, you're assimilated." I thought for a few moments of things I wanted to say, but we were in public and I knew a few other people were listening, so I very carefully said to him, "You don't see me as a Latina because I don't fit your stereotype of one, but I am a Latina and very proud of it." I'm grateful to have experienced all of the judicial assignments available, as Judge LaBarbera was telling you, from small claims and traffic to murder trials, civil, family law, probate, and my very favorite, juvenile law. I would have stayed in juvenile court my whole career if I'd had the opportunity. I loved that assignment so much. Never presuming to have inspired anyone, I nonetheless have strived to follow my mother's hard work ethic, to achieve the dream that she and my father had for their children, to get an education and have a career. The trip to Cuba that Mark Jacobson recounted made me appreciate many things. And first I want to mention, by the way, that was a State Department approved trip. We did not sneak through Canada or Mexico to get to Cuba. We went direct nonstop from LAX. But being there in Cuba and seeing the lack of freedom, seeing that people were afraid to talk to you about their government, talking in whispers, made me appreciate all the more how fortunate I am that my father became a United States citizen through his service in the U.S. Army during World War II. This allowed me to be born in this wonderful land of freedom and opportunity, where a little girl who didn't speak English until the first grade could grow up to be a judge. Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment to thank Christian Ross Pachin, who is our executive director, for helping us to keep organized today and welcome everyone. So thank you very much, Christian. She's doing a wonderful job as our executive director. At this time, I would like to invite Cacho Asajian, Assemblyman Cacho Asajian, and Kevin Bomarito up, please.
Your Honor, it's always a pleasure to be sharing with you the stage. And similar to some of you, have been in front of the judge, but unlike your stories, I've been a victim of a sort, and she has been very even-handed. The other thing I share with her, that I also been to Cuba legally, but to serve a different purpose, to enjoy the Cuban cigars any which way I can. With that, please, on behalf of the 35th Assembly this week, accept this congratulations certificate. Congratulations.
Thank you. I do have to make one comment about Cacho. He actually served on the Latino Outreach Council with me several years ago, and he's always been so receptive and outgoing in our entire community. I'm so proud that he has been part of my life. Thank you, Cacho.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, Senator Monning could not be here tonight, but he sends his wishes to everyone. And on behalf of him in the 17th District, I wanted to present you with a certificate from the Senator.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes our speeches for the evening. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and honoring this very, very special woman as we heard tonight. And again, thank you for coming, and thank you to all our sponsors and supporters. I want to thank Judge Teresa Estrada Mullaney. Please come up here. Thank you. For being such a wonderful person and friend.
Thank you.
We have coffee and dessert, so please enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you.